Hello and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we go back and we look at a Netflix original film in the order of release. Today we have Netflix 423rd film from 2021. It's the dark fantasy called Nightbooks. This one's directed by David Yarovesky and stars Winslow Fegley, Lidya, Jewett, and Krysten Ritter. I am Jesse. I am your host. Thank you for joining me today for this Netflix original film. As always, if you haven't seen this film yet and you're interested in checking it out, give us a pause and come back a little bit later on, because as we go, I am going to spoil bits and pieces of this film. So we kick off our show with the Fast Flicks, where we do a quick little summary of what the film is all about. And this one, it's about a kid who gets kidnapped by a witch, and she needs him to tell her a scary story every night, or she's going to kill him. So obviously he wants to escape. There we go. Interesting. This is I wasn't expecting this to be sort of a pre-teen type horror film, I guess is the best way of putting it. So let's get into it. Let's look at the film. Obviously, the title, Nightbooks, that's in relation to the idea that this witch needs a book to put her to sleep or at night time each night. So the tagline for this is "Write for your life." That makes sense. When you log on to Netflix, their little logline for the film is a modern Hansel and Gretel tale with a magical and frightful twist from the spine-tingling mind of Sam Raimi, based on the spooky book by J.A. White. There we go. That tells you a fair bit about the film. And then once you start the film on Netflix, it says a scary story fan, Alex, must tell a spine-tingling tale every night or stay trapped with a new friend in a wicked witch's magical apartment forever. Whew, there we go. All right, so around the world, in Spanish, Greek, Hungarian, and Swedish, it's called bedtime stories. That makes it not sound scary at all. In Portuguese, it's called spine-chilling night stories. There we go, that's better. In French, it's called pages of anxiety. Yeah, I like that one, not bad. In Croatian, it's called night diaries. In Danish, it's called books of the night. Finnish, stories of the night. In Italian, it's called scary stories, as well as Polish. In Chinese, it's called night study horror. In Slovak, it's called scary bedtime stories. Korean, it's called storyteller of the night. In Turkish, the most terrifying fairy tale. In Ukrainian, it's called night diaries. In Arabic, it's bedtime horror stories. And in Vietnamese, it's called tonight's horror stories. There we go. So all very, very similar. As mentioned before, this is based on a 2018 children's book by the author J.A. White. We then go to June of 2019, where it was announced that Netflix was developing an adaptation of Nightbooks with Mickey Daughtry and Tobias Iaconis writing the script. In October of 2020, it was announced that Krysten Ritter, Winslow Fegley, and Lidya, Jewett would star in the film, with David Yarovesky to direct. The film, as mentioned before too, was produced by Sam Raimi and Ramel Adam through Ghost House Pictures, and by Mason Novick and Michelle Nunston through MXN Entertainment. This is a little bit of a spoiler. I've already said spoiler, so if you wanted to watch it, don't listen now. But a little bit of a difference between the book and the film. So in the book, the witch, Natasha, ends up being defeated. And although it sort of seems like this in the movie, Natasha, the witch, actually survives, and her horrible laugh sort of goes just before the credits kick in. But there's also more in the book. All the kids, so there's been more kids prior than the two kids in the film that have been trapped by this witch, and they've been turned into little statues. So in the book, all the statues return to normal to get back to their families, whereas in the film, they're sort of all left as statues, which I guess opens it up for a sequel. This did hit Netflix worldwide on the 15th of September 2021. It was filmed in Toronto in Canada from October 14, 2020 to December 17th, 2020. And I guess the small cast sort of makes sense. This is during those key sort of COVID lockdowns and safety considerations during making films. So it makes sense how they've made this film. It was nominated at the Canadian Society of Cinematographers Awards for Best Cinematography in a non-theatrical film as well. What are the critics and audiences saying about this film? So Rotten Tomatoes sits at 90% from critics. That's huge. That's fresh on 31 reviews. The audience a little bit lower at 61%. That's on more than 100 ratings. We then go over to IMDb, where it's a 5.8 out of 10 on 11,000 ratings. So still a solid score, a little bit lower than Rotten Tomatoes. What else we got? Letterboxd 2.8 out of 5 on nearly 14,000 ratings, and it's been logged by 19,000 people. And on Metacritic, where they use that traffic light system of red, yellow, and green, it is green for critics, a 65 out of 100 on 5 reviews, and the audience, a 6.2 out of 10 on 21 reviews, also green. So you would have to say the consensus here is pretty positive for this film. What are my early thoughts on this one? For the first 20-ish minutes, I'd say, I was really not engaged. It could have been, I felt like it should have been a good short film, possibly, because there was an overusage of jump scares, very little happening, and it was just putting this kid in peril for the sake of putting him in peril. Luckily, it ends okay, but I'm not a huge fan, to be honest. So there we go, my thoughts. Let's talk about the characters. There's not many characters in this film. Alex is our young boy who we're introduced to in the opening scene of the film. His parents are arguing in the background. You don't see them, but they're arguing about how he's struggling. He's meant to have his birthday party. No one rocks up. And this sort of starts the spiral of him saying, hey, I like scary stories, I like scary movies, but I'm giving up on writing these because everyone thinks I'm weird for this. So this leads to him packing a bag, going to run away, and being taken captive by a witch who demands that he tells these stories, even though he's lost all his inspiration for writing. He loves all things horror, but obviously that idea of being bullied and being different means he wants to throw it all away. So this is his journey into finding what it means to actually be your true self. Yasmin, she's a young girl that Alex meets that's also been trapped by the witch and has almost become a slave to her. She hasn't seen her parents for years. She's almost given up on hope of escaping and is literally just does what she needs to do day to day to get through. And then Natasha is this witch who's captured these children. A very weird villain, and I'll probably talk about it a little bit more later on, but a very weird villain that is all over the shop. And I'm not sure whether it's not necessarily the performance, because I think the performance is fine. It's just, I think the way the character's written and how they go for the scares in this film that's not meant to be too scary. So she's comical as well. So that felt a little bit weird. And the witch Natasha's little sidekick is called Lenore. It's like a little cat who's very fierce and loyal towards her. But the kids start to support the cat and help the cat out, and that leads to the cat turning on the witch a little bit and being on the kid's side, which is nice to see too. The director, David Yarovesky, 16 directing credits, did the horror film called Brightburn, which some people may know. Did a music video clip for Korn, the band as well, which sort of makes sense with this visual style that you see in this film, which is quite impressive throughout. Let's talk about some scenes. What are some scenes that worked? What scenes didn't work? Things that worked. Alex, the kid, the first time that he sees Lenore the cat, he just picks the cat up and throws it across the room. I thought that was great. I like that. The tension when Yasmin and Alex are working together to put the poison into Natasha's lemonade. I thought that was really good. I was on the edge of my seat going, what's going to happen here? That was great. And Alex telling that story of his friend Josh, his best friend who ditched him for the cooler kids. That was heartbreaking. I really felt a little bit of an emotional connection there, so that was sweet. Things that didn't work. The cat, Lenore. The CGI of that cat is so bad at times. It just looks so fake. There's a scene where this cat does... It has the ability to hide or cloak itself. And there's a scene where it's doing a poo on Alex's bread. It was just lame. It didn't work. The glow-in-the-dark nursery, it was super cool. It looked great, the whole neon-y side of things, but the whole bitey, spidery sort of things added nothing to the tension of the film. Wasn't a big fan of that chase. The evil unicorn and the Hansel and Gretel house, it was just a bit too much to add on to. Like, this could have been a tight film. I don't know, it just felt a little bit extended. And then finally, the ending. It was supposed to be this nice reunification of Alex and Yasmin being happy and... they're back with their parents, they're still friends, they still stay in touch even though they don't live near each other. And it was really ruined by this really poor zoom out of a really ordinary CGI apartment block that just took any realism away from the moment. So that was disappointing. Some themes, some ideas. What's the film trying to say? It does have a lot of nice messages. That idea of resilience and strength in being different and being yourself, that's great. And standing up for others too, your friends, highlighting the strong attributes and positive things about friendship and teamwork and science. It can be cool as well as having your own little quirks. It can be a cool thing too. The idea that happy endings do exist and they're important as well. And I think this one's a really important one as well. But those who put trauma on others have often felt trauma themselves, and we see that through The Witch as well. What else did I take away from this film? I think it looks good 98% of the time. I know I criticised a few of the CGI scenes, but there was so much effort that went into the sets and the design, and that was really cool. But this film is pretty full on. It's rated PG in Australia, and I think it's almost too much for a PG film. Like, especially at the start and at the end, it's almost too dark for preteens, and teens would probably like the scares but be bored with everything else in between. So that's where I'm sort of a little bit unsure as to where this sits and who this is actually for. Some questions, some pondering, some thoughts, some ideas. The Natasha, I sort of said this before, the witch. She's this mixed bag of a character. At times, and again, this is meant to be a kid-friendly villain almost, but has to turn it up at times, which makes her really scary and full-on, and it sort of makes it a really confusing piece of work. So I was not sold on the villain, and I guess that you need that to work for this film to work. A question of the parents, like what sort of parents would let, this is in relation to Alex's parents, but what sort of parents would let a kid this age watch and consume the horror content that he's idolized so much in his room through posters and books and all that sort of stuff? Wild. I like this line from the film. Natasha says this. She says, "Writers, they're always so insecure." I thought that was quite funny, and I think this is a question that after I'd finished looking at the film, and I didn't realize Sam Raimi was involved until the end credits. And when I saw his name, I was like, okay, cool. And then I jumped on to think about the show and do some research, and saw how well this has been received critically. And I had to question, like, has this film just been pumped up in critical acclaim and ratings because of his involvement, of Sam Raimi's involvement? Maybe. I don't know. It's just a pondering. It's just a thought. I'm going to leave you on that because I'm ready to wrap this one up. We give the films we cover on this show a rating out of 5. So for me, the back end of the film and the set design do make up for a very ordinary first half of the film. It's just a bit too scary for young ones and probably a bit too corny for kids who would be able to handle the scares. So I'm giving this a 2 out of 5 for me. It's fine, but it's not. I don't think it's the best kids entertainment you're going to find. Other than that, we're on socials. We have Facebook, we have Instagram, and we have X, formerly known as Twitter. Give us a follow, give us a like, and answer our question for this episode, which I wanted to put out there. What's the best way to deal with bullies? Obviously, bullies suck. What's the best way to deal with them? Obviously, sometimes ignoring them is a good strategy, but what's some other good ways that you can deal with bullies that don't include physical violence or resorting to their lows? I'm intrigued. Let me know. Other than that, we're back next week. Next week, we have... what do we have? An international film from 2021. It's an Indian Hindi language anthology film called Ankai Kahania. It's directed by Abhishek Shaboy, Saki Shanduri, and Ashwini Iyer Tiwari. There we go. It stars Abhishek Banji, Rinki Rajuri, Dalzad Hawali, Kunal Kapoor, Zoya Hussain, Nikhil Davidi, and Polamo Ghosh. There we go. Give that one a watch for next week if you're interested. Other than that, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you then.